This is the story of how my game went from this to this. Hi, I'm Will, and I'm the developer of Angkor, the Holy City, a unique village building game about growing a thriving settlement while under the all-seeing eyes of the gods. This has been a hell of a journey, and the game has come so far, but to get the whole story, we're going to need to go back. I have literally just put the game up on Steam, so you can wishlist it right now. It would be an enormous help to me if you did, so go and get amongst it. Now, on with the flashback. The year was 2014, and I had just stumbled upon Game Maker Studio and the brilliant tutorials of a genius named Sean Spaulding. Teenage me was struck with inspiration, so I jumped in headfirst and started working on my masterpiece. The first game that I ever actually finished was called Ships That Battle, because Battleships was obviously already taken. It was basically Pong, but instead of bouncing a ball back and forth between two paddles, it was two ships firing cannons at each other. Yeah, no, it was just as bad as it sounds. I actually wanted the ships to be able to move all around the map instead of just like up and down, but I couldn't figure out how to do it, so I just gave up. My only other serious attempt at making something was a top-down shooter set in space. I actually got pretty far into development, far enough to have a bit of gameplay to show for it, but I gave up because I kept running into bugs that I couldn't solve. One of which was like when the player was using the mouse scroll wheel to scroll up and down through the weapons, I couldn't figure out how to make scrolling up when you were on the last weapon reset you to the first weapon. So yeah, nobody can accuse me of not having humble beginnings. I sort of drifted away from programming for a little while, but after I moved away to university to study computer science, I downloaded Unity and started messing around with it a little bit again. I knew that I wanted to make a city builder game, so I started experimenting with pathfinding, construction, and a job system. The initial idea for the game was for like a multiplayer RTS Age of Empires style game where all of the players compete for the favor of a few mythical gods. If you have the most favor with a god, you get to use its abilities against your enemies. Fortunately for me, I realized that my smooth brain was never going to figure out how to make a multiplayer game, so I scaled it back and started blowing through ideas faster than Unity blows through pricing models. I thought of having a single god oversee your village and earning favor with them through building religious structures would let you unlock stuff in a research tree, but that's literally just a reskinned science and research mechanic. It wasn't special enough, so I scrapped it. Then I had the idea of adding missions that a god can give you so that you can earn favor with them, but I decided that that would just kind of ruin the sense of freedom that you get with a city builder game, and it was sort of gimmicky anyway, so I scrapped it as well. Finally, I switched to having multiple gods and building temples in the world to dedicate to them. Earning enough favor with them would earn you blessings, and not having lavish enough temples for them would get you cursed. I was inspired by Islanders, which has a pretty cool puzzle mechanic where certain buildings get bonuses from being near other buildings, so I added that to the custom temples to turn maximizing their faith output into a bit of a puzzle. Then I basically just screwed around, ignoring bugs and adding features that didn't need to be added for the rest of the time that I was at university. And I even started making a few devlogs along the way. Finally, when I finished uni, I was able to banish a whole lot of useless information from my brain, like how to invert a binary tree or write fizzbuzz in assembly, so I was able to start taking development a little bit more seriously. I also did a little bit of traveling, and while I was in Cambodia, I stumbled on a little-known temple called Angkor Wat. Turns out Angkor means city and Wat means temple in Khmer, and I thought to myself, hey, it doesn't really get any more on the nose than that, so now we had a name for the game as well. So now all we needed was to finally settle on a design for the game, so this is what I came up with. Gods come and go at random intervals. If you have enough faith being generated for them by your temples, you can work towards a blessing, like unlocking a new building or a new religious ability. And if you don't have enough, you'll increase the god's wrath. And higher wrath means getting curses, and the higher the wrath, the more deadly the curses are. All this religious stuff also has to be juggled with the normal city builder tropes like happiness, food, and your growing population. So with a bit more direction, I've finally been able to put my head down and grind out some more features this year. Game development is funny because you spend maybe 10% of your time working on the cool features that people think of when they think of games. Things like the weather system, fire, and villager tasks. And then 90% of the time you're working on features that are hugely important but have very little noticeable impact on the actual final product. Like a customizable procedural generation system or pathfinding. My god, did pathfinding take me a long time. And so because you spend so much time working on stuff that's barely noticeable, it's very easy to lose sight of the actual progress that you've made. But looking back on it now, this game is absolutely transformed over the last 6 or so months. And if you look even further back, it's pretty mind-blowing to see how far we've come. Now that the game was starting to take shape, we were facing one last massive hurdle. It was really fucking ugly. First impressions count when you're marketing a game, and I really wanted the visual appearance of the game to live up to the effort that I'd put into the mechanics. So I embarked on the long and arduous journey of giving the old girl a glow up. No doubt the biggest improvement has been the models, and that is because I stopped trying to make them myself. Bringing an artist on board was a long overdue decision, and now that the models he's making are starting to roll in, I'm realizing that it was probably the smartest decision that I've ever made. That combined with the little refinements to the lighting and post-processing, and of course the beautiful reflections in the water, mean that the game is finally starting to look the way that I imagined it would when I started this project all those years ago. This has also been a great opportunity to work on the little visual effects that make the game look polished and feel fun. Stuff like god rays lighting up on a temple when a god that it's dedicated to appears, and of course the violent and explosive death animations for villagers who meet violent and explosive ends. But the real meat and potatoes of this visual overhaul has been the user interface, and man do I hate coding user interfaces. But seeing as city builder and management games are almost entirely played through the user interface, I might be in the wrong line of work. Trying to communicate all of the information that you need to is certainly a challenge, but I'm actually pretty pleased with the end result. It's certainly a visual improvement over the placeholders that have been haunting me since this project began, but it is definitely going to need to be refined as development continues. These last few months I've been going all in on getting a Steam page up and ready, which of course is now live. Finally getting the game to a point where it's ready to be seen by the world has been a pretty emotional moment, to be honest. It has certainly been a lot of work, considering that for the last 3 years I've been completing features by getting them into a half-assed state and saying, fuck it, that's good enough. And of course now I've actually had to go through and finish all of that stuff. This project has been something that's filled my time for as long as I can remember now, even though for the most part I haven't really been taking it that seriously. So to see it finally starting to take shape is pretty amazing, and I want to thank all of you for supporting me along the way. Even if it was just watching 1 or 2 of these videos, watching my subscriber count grow, albeit slowly, has given me the motivation I've needed to continue when I felt like giving up. So now, even though there is certainly a lot more work to do, I can set my sights on the next big achievement, which will be a playable demo. So if you're interested in taking part in the playtesting stage, you can sign up to the mailing list, and the link will be in the top of the description. And of course, the biggest thing you can do now to support the game is to, of course, wishlist it on Steam. That's all from me for now, but thank you very much for all of your support, and I'll see you next time.